So today is December 2nd, 2016, and the sun is out, but the sky is a little bit hazy. You can see there's a few kind of thin, high clouds. So I'm going to go out and see what's happening with the solar array. Alright, so looks like the meter is running backwards. The meter reading, it says 479, and it is actually, if you look at the little arrow by the word received down in the lower right corner of the display, it's pointing to the left. And then you have the virtual indicators underneath the digits that are sort of also moving to the left, simulating the spinning disc in an analog meter running backwards. So right now the array is pretty much shade free. I think it's about roughly 10:30 in the morning. Okay, now this morning it looks like the array is producing about 4,200 watts, something like that. 4250, it looks like that's pretty consistent. 4,200 for sure, with about 17.5 amps. That's up in the upper right corner. The display looks a little, just slightly dark on the left side, at least to my eye. Maybe in the video, but it's certainly still legible. So let me get the thermometer out of my pocket here and see if I can take some temperatures this morning. Oops. Turn the laser on. Okay, now the temperature wise, 120. If I hit the right area, it's kind of hard to keep, to figure out which area it is. I'm looking at the display and then holding the thermometer with the other hand, about a 115 maybe. I think I saw 113 anyway. If I aim over to the right side of the display, it's showing about 72 degrees. You should be able to see the laser dot right there. Is where the thing is aimed at. So it seems to be I'm getting the warmest temperatures right along the left edge of the display, especially, I guess, probably the left top for sure. Then the box, 65 degrees. 60 degrees is kind of hard to make that out with the shadows. So the only part that's getting warm is this display, and it's about 113, 116 I saw right there. Kind of depends on where it's aimed, exact space where it's aimed at. So if we look at the temperature of the panels, if I can get that to show up, come on and focus. It's not wanting to. There we go, 83 degrees. Now if we aim at the surface of one of the inverters, 86. Let's move on down to a different panel. 88 on the back of the panel, about 90 on the inverter. Let's come to this noisy one here. See how it's about 88, and then about 91 on the panel. So they're all going to be, I'll just pick another one at random, but I think they're all going to be about the same probably. Back of the panel, 86, 90. Surface of the inverter about 96. So the meter, as I said before, is running backwards, and I know for a fact that the electric hot water heater is running, and there's some lights on, and the furnace motor's running, and refrigerator's probably running, and it's still running backwards. But I know for a fact that the water heater's on because I just took a shower. So probably will check back later today. It is several hours later. It's still Friday, December 2nd, 2016. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so it looks like we have some shading going on some of the panels. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe into the 7th one, possibly, from the left. Certainly on the first 6, and the rest of them are in the sun. So we'll take a look and see what's going on. So the meter is still traveling backwards. I don't know if that number means anything, but now it's down to 467. Of course, it goes up and down, kind of depending on how much gets pumped in during the day versus how much I use once the sun goes down, at least while I'm around here using juice. Of course, I use more juice when I'm home than when I'm not, obviously. The house has a certain amount of load on it. You know, I got IP cameras and refrigerator, and the hot water heater comes on periodically, that type of thing. So there's a certain base level of usage. And then if somebody's around, if I'm around or my parents are in there using it, as they are sometimes, then the usage obviously goes up. So it's moving backwards, still at a fairly good clip. So let's go see what the watt meter says. Alright, so we're at the watt meter. It looks like the left side is kind of darkened a little bit again, but I can still read it, at least. I don't know how well it's showing up on the screen, but on the camera, but in person I can read it. It's 34, roughly 3,400 watts, 14, let's say 14¼ amps. It's up in the upper right corner, 249 volts, and I guess that says 88 watt hours. And that, but each time this is disconnected, if I need to reconnect something, that ends up resetting that watt hours. And I think I can also manually reset it if I wanted to. But about roughly 3,400 watts is what it seems to be producing. So now taking a look at the temperature, inside the box it says it's 66 degrees. Ambient temperature, let me see if I can find something that would show me the ambient temperature. Let's see, something that would give me a good gauge here of the ambient temperature. Get my finger out of the way. 64, maybe? I don't know if that's right or not. Yeah, it must be, because that says 60 shooting it at the ground, so it probably is. It actually probably is that warm. So I think that was, well, the high was supposed to be around 60 today, so maybe it beat that by a little bit. So, on the display right there, it's showing about 100 and, I don't know, at one point it said 124, 125, 126, sort of on the left end of that display. And that's probably, because it's getting warm, that's probably what causes it to discolor. The right side is reading 80 I don't know, 85 degrees, but that left side is, I get it aimed right, it's about 125, you know, give or take a little bit. So, in any case, so we're reading about 3,400 watts at the moment. And let's walk over here to the panels that are in the sunlight. Back of the panel on a 60-degree day in direct sunlight, if I can get it to show up, 107. Yep. Okay, the surface temperature of the inverter is going to be about the same, 106, 110. Whoops, I hit the panel there, 101 on the back of the inverter. Let's walk down to another random one. Okay, that one is showing about 110 on the panel, and on the surface of the inverter about 107, something like that. So that seems about right. Those temperatures seem to kind of run together to a large extent. Take a quick walk starting at the east end of the array and just kind of make sure that all of the inverters are working. I can tell by the flashing LED. That's how they normally flash when everything is working. I think it's hitting kind of on all the cylinders. There are 20 panels with 20 inverters, all feeding juice into the grid. So all of the inverters do seem to be functioning, and as I say, as I back up, you can see that some of the panels are a little bit shaded because of the position of the sun in relation to the trees. So overall, I have both a string inverter from, dating back to 1999, and now this new array with the micro inverter mounted on the back of each panel. For expandability purposes, if you're just feeding power into the grid like I am right here, and you're not worrying about battery backup, a grid tie system like this with microinverters seems to be the most expandable. Because as you've seen, if you've watched my videos, I started out, my installer started out with a string of 6, and then he has rapidly expanded that to 20. Now, if I wanted, let's say I wanted 20 more, which I don't think I need those, but let's say that I wanted 20 more. Well, it would be possible just to make another stand right in front of this one, leaving some distance so that one wouldn't shade the other one, and I could continue basically adding panels and inverters if I wanted to. So for expandability purposes, the microinverter system feeding directly back into the power grid is really a good solution. Now, if you're looking for battery backup, then a string inverter is a better choice. One, you can have those that are grid, like the string inverter I have. It's possible to grid tie as well as do battery backup and off grid with it. Of course, the problem is the batteries. Initially, I started out with L16 lead acid batteries. Those lasted about 4 years because it was my fault. I didn't take care of them properly. So I think if I ever got any new batteries for a battery backup system, I think I would probably, from everything I've read, I would probably go with AGM batteries because they are much more forgiving. You can kind of ignore them and you don't have to worry about putting distilled water in them. So, in any case, the new array is up and running, and I'm really pleased with how much electricity it is producing, feeding directly back into the grid. So now it's about, 30 minutes or so later, and it seems that we have kind of moved into the clouds. So we'll take one final look and see what's happening. So according to the power meter, it's still running backwards, although it's at a slower rate, obviously, because now it is pretty much completely cloudy, and all of the panels are now kind of at least shaded with the clouds, but it is slowly kind of moving backwards. And let's see, it's the array, even with the clouds, and it's about, I don't know what time it is now, 2:30 something in the afternoon, but now it's cloudy. It is still producing a pretty respectable, about 850 watts, give or take a few, 3.9, let's say 3.9 amps, 840 watts, certainly 800 for sure. So that's not too bad for it being now cloud covered.